This past week I was able to visit the final stages of construction of Alpen Fury at Canada's Wonderland, the park's new 9-inversion multi-launch coaster from Premier Rides, which nearing the end of May has been troubling in its delays. Missing supports, a half-finished station, albeit impressive in light of other less inspired ones found with Behemoth and Leviathan, and a yet-to-be-completed track layout begs the question, when will this ride in fact be ready for the public? With this in mind, a closer look allowed for a few new insights into this record-breaking new signature ride for the park. Some are worrisome, while others remain baffling. Given the hype around the records this ride will hold once it eventually opens, longest, fastest, and tallest launch coaster in Canada, in addition to the most inversions on a launch coaster, it's hard to fathom that Alpen Fury will in fact be 400 feet shorter in length than the park's last major ride, Yukon Striker. If it can hold any torch to that previous coaster's, in my opinion, triumph, it is that it continues a legacy of frankly odd and unmemorable coaster names. Whereas Behemoth and Leviathan have iconic titles, the same cannot be said of Alpen Fury or Yukon Striker, or even the frankly tongue-twisting Snoopy's Racing Railway. The park once had a more grounded and timeless approach to its attraction names, many of which still retain fondness, such as Wild Nightmares, Thunder Run, Mindbuster, and the often lamented Zumba Flume. What we have now are what could double as the names of wrestlers vying for that legacy. Observing the station's construction, what stands out more than its overall vastness is the giant staircase leading guests to the ride platform. It stands as an icon of what will likely be Alpen Fury's most problematic experience. While it should be expected that, like Yukon Striker, there will be 3 separate dedicated lines for a standard queue, fast lane, and boarding pass / special considerations, wait times compounded from these 3 competing queues are no doubt going to translate into equally gigantic wait times for the general public. This is evident since Alpen Fury, with 2 trains and only 18 passengers per launch, will be the lowest capacity e-ticket attraction at the park. Having suffered numerous fast lane frustrations in the past, there will be without question the longest average queue times for this coaster the park has ever seen. It is of no wonder why a majority of the queue will be housed in the shade of its massive station complex, since the waiting crowd will need it from the unforgiving heat of summer. The remnants of the obscure initial promotion of the ride, tarnishing the mountain like the sketches of a questionable street artist, draws attention to the confusing theming around this coaster. While it is said that Alpen Fury is a thrilling merger of the effects of fire and ice, and while I somewhat understand this from Alpen Festival's standpoint, as the village is themed after a German mountain village, I remain confused about the inclusion of fire theming. At no point in its history has Wonder Mountain been presented as a volcanic structure. In fact, it is arguable, rather, that water has been its core element, as it once accented the structure in several running waterfalls in the past, in addition to its standout front-facing cascade. The fire effect that will presumably be added to Alpen Fury's launch is a touch uninspired in light of previous coasters utilizing that effect, and harkens more to a fairground attraction rather than a world-class theme park. One can also not ignore that if the park has presented no intention in fixing its long-defunct fire effects on backlot stunt coaster, it begs the question as to how long in the future the park will invest in keeping Alpen's fire effect. A positive from Premier's offering does come with the train design, which is easily the most inspired and bespoke of any offering the park has presented in the past, outside of perhaps Snoopy's Racing Railway. The ice-led design and color scheme has already won many admirers, along with the relief of its most desired aspect, a lack of seatbelts. We can only wait, however, to see if this omission will last, as many of Premier's roller coasters have in the past found themselves victims of their introduction after their initial debut to the public, most notably Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Full Throttle is an interesting Premier coaster. Despite being introduced over a decade ago, it shares similarities to Alpen Fury. The Skyrocket 3 design features a launch of 70 miles per hour, one short of Alpen Fury's fastest launch, and had arguably similar ambitious design elements, including at the time of its introduction, the largest loop on a roller coaster in the world. I was impressed with the ride when I had the chance to experience it recently, although the forces one might expect are not as intense as one might hope. In addition to this, it is surprisingly the second launch upon Samurai Summit that produces a pronounced butterfly effect on the stomach on its backwards launch. This comparison is necessary, given that while Premier roller coasters are known for their atypical designs, their coasters do not generally translate towards world-class experiences. Full Throttle would not be the ride it is without the scenery surrounding that prolonged hang time during its loop, and the rest of the ride does not leave much in the realm of thrills to brag about. While Premier has provided some commendable thrills in the past, such as with the Mr. Freeze rides, this has not come without compromise, most catastrophically in regards of downtime. In fact, having been on countless skyrocket rides and others, I have experienced numerous breakdowns while waiting for a turn on Full Throttle, Skyrocket at Kennywood, Flight of Fear at both its locations, and the aforementioned Mr. Freeze at Six Flags St. Louis. It is my fear that in order to keep within their conservative budget, Canada's Wonderland may suffer with Alpen Fury's reliability in the future. With a near-completed track now installed and dominating the landscape between International Street and Grand World Expo, earlier concerns about the park losing character due to the loss of many of its full-growth trees has proven to be evident, but not traumatic. Thankfully, in person, the somewhat jarring color scheme of Alpen Fury blends well within these areas, and the sections of low-lying track near the confluence point in front of Great Bear Lodge is impressive. This ride will reward with many picture-worthy observation points. The haywire section of tracks competing against one another at the back of the mountain, with Vortex, Wonder Mountain's Guardian, and Alpen Fury woven through one another, will no doubt preoccupy many trying to capture that perfect moment when all three trains cross each other. Walking throughout the park, there are countless areas where Alpen Fury's layout no doubt will captivate onlookers, marveling at its myriad of elements. Finally, it begs the question at the time of posting of this video, when Alpen Fury will actually open to the public. Roller coaster enthusiasts eager to make trip plans are still suffering from PTSD after the sudden closure of Top Thrill 2 last year. In a skeptic-rewarding era of questionable reliability, one only need to look at Hyperia's problems at Thorpe Park. It has become increasingly difficult to plan a newly minted coaster experience within its infancy. This is not a new phenomenon, as troubled ride openings are not uncommon and too abundant to cover in the scope of this video. And given that as of this moment, Alpen Fury's station and track is still not complete, a spring opening date is leaning heavily towards a miracle. Given that the park's busiest period falls in the first week of July between Canada Day and the 4th of July, I feel it is reasonable to expect that after finishing of the circuit, test runs and tweaking, which will be of necessity with the launch coaster, completion of lockout areas and landscaping around the station and other areas along the layout, Alpen Fury will likely be aimed for an early July opening. Anything beforehand will be a welcome success at this stage, as the first major weekend traditionally when Wonderland opens rides, that of Victoria Day weekend, has now since passed. I remain optimistic that Alpen Fury will deliver on its promised thrills this year despite reservations outlined in this video. However, the park is racing against the clock to meet the expectations of an excited public and eager enthusiasts already committed to other summer plans. Time has not been kind on the park considering that their last major coaster's second season was delayed a year due to restrictions around the lockdown of 2020, and I honestly do hope that the park receives a break considering the strife it has experienced in the current decade. Despite this, Alpen Fury will surely open at some point this year, and the only true judge of its success lies in its ride experience, which I look forward to enjoying, hopefully very soon.